CSA Chapter 1.4. So here's the textbook page. But first, let's do a little math. All right, I just want to convince you that one of the most important concepts in doing programming and doing Java in this class, any sort of programming, is looking at expressions and dealing with expressions and writing expressions and simplifying expressions. So in math class, something like this, x times 2 plus 5 divided by x plus y minus z, this thing is called an expression. Okay. Now, I've written this just a little bit different than what you would learn in math class, but I think you're going to understand what it is. Okay. So this, and this, these are all variables, right? X, anytime you see an X, a Y, or a Z, those are variables. Parentheses are parentheses, right? So this is a parentheses. So left, right, okay? Left parentheses, right parentheses. This is multiplication. This is add. Slash in coding means divide. All right, this is minus, and this is plus. So just a little bit of symbol stuff there. Okay. But let's do it. So you know this since probably 8th grade, okay? At least maybe 7th grade. So PEMDAS counts. Okay. So what are the, PEMDAS is something we got to think about, and then we got to think about how we do the actual variable stuff. Okay. So we have x times 2 plus 5 divided by x plus y minus z. How do we simplify this? First thing we're going to do is we're going to plug in our variables. So everywhere we see an x, we're going to put in a 5. Okay, and then we're going to write the rest of it. Okay, so 5 divided by, well, x is 5, plus y is 2, minus z is 3. Great. So then we do PEMDAS. This is in parentheses, so we do this first. All right, so 10 plus 5 divided by 5 plus 2 minus 3. And then PEMDAS, the next thing we would do is this division. So that's going to be 10 plus 1 plus 2 minus 3. And then we can just add these all up. Okay, so 10 plus 1 plus 2 is 13 minus 3 equals 10. Good. So we just took an expression, we had some variables, and we simplified the expression. This is the most complicated math we'll have to do all year, is simplifying little expressions like this. So writing expressions with the parentheses and the little stars for times and plus and divide, that's how we do any sort of calculation in Java. And so this whole thing up here, that is an expression, right? So that's the real concept of today. I think that probably made sense to you. If it didn't, go back, Google Khan Academy PEMDAS, and you'll get an explanation that sounds a lot like what I just did. And I've been told that my voice sounds kind of like the Khan Academy guy. So if you want basically the exact same video, go Google PEMDAS on Khan Academy. Anyways, Java, expressions and assignment statements. So let's do this in somewhat reverse order here. They talk about assignment statements first. Not going to worry about that right now. Where do they get to expressions? Exactly. So somewhere in here they're talking about expressions. And the word they use is operator. So in our expression, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division are all operators, okay? So you put an operator like 10 plus 1, that plus is an operator. An operator goes in between two values. Cool. So that's just a little preview of what the chapter looks like here. So then here, they've got a pretty good diagram, so I won't draw one. Here's an example of what is called an assignment statement. Now, if you listened to the video, watched the video about chapter 1.3, you'll know kind of what this looks like. So on the left-hand side of the equal sign, we have the variable's name. So this is an example where we've got a variable called score. It's probably a double. So we are going to say score equals sign. And then over here, we've got our expression. So we just practiced how expressions worked. If points was equal to 3, we would assign 10 times 3 plus 5, and we would put that value into the score variable. Actually, I will do a little diagram about that because we're talking about math, and there's actually what we did at the beginning is kind of like math class. What we're doing here is not like math class. So if we say points, or rather score equals sign points times 3 plus 10. If points, let's say points was, in our imagination, we've got the points variable and it's equal to 6. So like imagine that somebody said int points equals sign 6. So that had already happened, and someone said int score equals 0. So we've got our points variable, we've got our score variable. And now we get to this line of code. What is going to happen? We're going to say score equals sign. Now this equal sign here, single equal sign, that it's not saying what you think it says, okay, from math class. It's saying that you're going to do this expression, you're going to simplify this expression, and you're going to put the result into this variable. And my pen is a little bit behind. You're going to put the result into that variable. Okay. So just like we did at the beginning of this video, we know how to simplify this. So points, here's our little scratch work down here. If points is equal to 6, so we've got our expression points times 3 plus 10. Points is equal to 6, so we've got 6 times 3 plus 10. So that's going to be 18 plus 10 is 28. So this whole thing is 28, which means that we're going to put 28 into our score variable. So that's what assignment means. This whole thing here is called an assignment statement. This part over here is the expression. This is the variable name. And this is what happens in our imagination as Java is running our program. Okay, so that's the other screen of my notes, but we don't need that right now. Back to the book. Okay, I'm taking a lot of time on this because this is super important, but I think we'll be able to fly through what the actual chapter says now that we've done kind of our work over here. Okay, so they show us kind of what I just showed you. They've got another example video, so you'll be able to watch this person's video. Let's see. Okay. And you can step through this little thingy. This is a little interactive code, and you'll be able to see how variables work and how the assignment stuff works with this little interactive thingy. So you can play with that. Got a couple multiple choice questions for you, a little drag and drop around the code puzzle for you. All right. Adding 1 to a variable, otherwise known as incrementing. So if I have, let's say I have int score equals 0. Gotta go over to my other screen. Int score equals 0. I can increment or add 1 to my variable. So when this code runs, we're going to get in our brains, we can imagine that there's a little box somewhere with the number 0 in it. If on the next line of code I say score equals score plus 1, this does not look like a valid equation because it's not an equation, right? This is not math in that sense. This is an assignment statement. So score equals sign score plus 1. What do? We simplify, we evaluate this expression, and then we put that result into the variable. So in our little scratch paper over here, we say score plus 1. Well, that's a pretty simple expression to evaluate. Up here, we know that score is 0. So what's 0 plus 1? That equals 1. That means that up here, we're going to erase what was in score, and now score is equal to 1. That's how you increment a variable or add 1 to a variable. We'll talk about the word increment maybe some other time. Anyways, let's see. Oh wow, they're using Replit now. Oh, cool. So they gave you, this is some other code that you can play with. This gets a little bit more advanced, but you can play with this if you'd like. All right. Operators. Okay. So we talked about already, and we know this from 8th grade, plus, minus, times, and division. But we've got a couple other things here. We're going to talk about this a ton more later, so I'm actually not going to worry about this too much right now. I'm not going to get into it. But equal sign, I'll just go over it really quickly. This is an expression, 2 = 3. And the way that we simplify this is we say, is the left-hand side equal to the right-hand side? In this case, it's not. So this would, when we're simplifying this expression, when we're evaluating this expression, this evaluates to false. This is really asking a question. Okay, it's asking, is 2 equal to 3? It isn't, so we would evaluate to false. Okay, is 2, but if we ask 2 plus 2 equals 4, to simplify this expression, 2 plus 2 is 4, so is 4 equal to 4? True, yes. This is going to get hugely important soon, but for today, not as important. But that's another operator that we need to think about. Operator precedence. So operator precedence is a vocab word that they'll introduce. You can read the definition. That's really just talking about PEMDAS. There's this thing called the modulo operator. We're going to go over this in more detail at another time when we're actually coding it. So I'm not going to go over that right now. You can look at the video as you're going through this, but I won't quiz you on that right now. Modulo operator, because I just want to get this done. All right, so they got a little programming challenge for you to do if you'd like. Once again, all of the activities in the textbook, I'll never grade those, I'll never collect those. You should be practicing, you should be doing as many of the questions and little activities as you can. If you don't have time, do it later as you're studying some other time. They'll always be there. I'll never collect them. I'll never, if you want help with them, that's fine. But otherwise, I won't look at them. So you can try that if you'd like. Here's the summary. If you are lazy and just want to read that, or maybe put this in a notebook somewhere. And just one AP practice question. So that's expressions and assignment statements for you. That was chapter 1.4, another important one. But hopefully your prior knowledge that you have from just regular old algebra is pretty useful here. Hopefully I pointed out a couple of key areas where the coding, the symbols you see are not exactly the same as from math class, but in a lot of situations they are. So hopefully this was helpful, and we'll move on to the next chapter in the next video.